Broadcast 1. So that's broadcasting. I'll just hit live on Facebook. People should be able to access. There we go. People are dropping in now. The attendees. Hi, David. Hi, Charlotte. You see that as well, Nikki?
Oh, I can now, yes.
Oh, hi, Balvinda. Hi, Ray. People are dropping in. Welcome. Reconnecting. Hi, Ian.
Yes.
Just give you a couple of minutes, guys, just to let everyone attend that's supposed to be here. You won't be able to chat, but please do drop any comments or questions in the actual chat function at the bottom. We will answer as we go if we can. If not, we'll have a Q&A at the end. Yay, excellent. We are now streaming on Facebook as well. Excellent.
Wow.
Cool. All right, I'm going to transfer over to you, Nikki. So you are now a host. Change host. Yeah, I do indeed. There we go.
Okay, are you ready for me to start?
If we give them just a minute, because people
Sure.
notices, just people need to download the new version of Zoom just to get it working so they can tune in.
Fabulous.
I suppose I can do the preamble while we're waiting. Suppose those guys are here. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you, Nikki, for giving up your time this afternoon. Welcome to what will be the 6th webinar in the Digital U Week, a series of conferences and events. The event has been put together by myself and the team to really help businesses, educate them, and help them transition into the digital age, and more so now than ever with the things like Corona going on and having to hate the word pivot, but pivot their businesses online for many people. Concept's been going for a couple of years. In the last 2 years, it's been in real life, actually events venue. This year, we thought we would actually, demonstrate our digital skills and do it online. So we reached out to a lot of connections like Nikki to bring their expertise to help businesses and value to them. That's enough about me. Nikki is fantastic. You saw Rachel in the background. There is wouldn't be Zoom without a dog in the background. So that is Blue somewhere. There he is, popping his head up. So hopefully we'll learn something, and hopefully we'll have a bit of fun. Hopefully we will have fun and we will learn something. Very patronising. Sorry, Nikki. Over to Nikki, who's going to be talking and helping you and educating you all around the cyberbullying sphere.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Just going to share my screen, if you just bear with me, everybody.
Yep, cool.
Okay, fabulous. So as Chris mentioned, I'm Nicki Eyre, and I have a business called Conduct Coaching, but we also have a campaigning arm called Conduct Change, where we are really advocating and campaigning to raise awareness about workplace bullying. And with so many people actually having to work online now, it just seems like a really good time to remind people about this topic. One of the things I'd like to do first is a quick poll, if I can. So just pop that up on the screen. You should be able to see it now. And just choose one of the selections. Have you ever personally experienced cyberbullying? So that might be at home, it might be at work, it might be that you have friends and family that have, or you haven't at all. So if you can just go for that poll now and just pop your answers in, that would be brilliant, just to get a feel for who's on the call. So, oh, I've got an error. Let me just launch it again, see if that works.
There we go.
There we go, that's better.
Perfect.
So just a few more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's really interesting. 40% on the call have experienced cyberbullying at work, and 20% have answered with no, but friends or family have, and 40% haven't experienced cyberbullying, which is great. So I'll just close that one down. So today we're just going to be talking a little bit about cyberbullying and how it affects in the workplace, because we see it quite a lot. Oops, sorry. We see it, I've lost my chat. There it is. Just bear with me while I just do a few wiggles. Okay, so in the chat, if you can just let me know, anybody here got children, particularly teenage children? Yeah, so you might be quite interested in what I'm about to show you then. In 2014, there was a report done by an organisation called Ditch the Label, and there's quite a lot of information there, so I just want to pick some out for you. This was a survey of 13 to 25-year-olds in the UK. 24% of those have sent a naked photo to someone they know only online. 24% have had a naked photo shared without their consent. 49% believe it's just harmless fun, and 16% said it's the normal thing to do. Now, for me, that's quite scary statistics, and I don't even have children. So for those of you that do, I can't even imagine how you feel as a parent. When they asked them about whether they had actually received any abuse on these networking apps, 52% have never reported the abuse that they've received. And even when they did, 26% felt like it wasn't taken seriously when it was reported, which is, again, it's really worrying when we're talking about the children. And the behavioural impact, 49% experienced a loss in confidence, and 24% turned to self-harming as a coping mechanism. And it's interesting when we think about self-harming, but actually as an adult, how often have you turned to a glass of wine as a means of getting over some sort of comment that didn't sit well with you? It's all a form of self-harm, and we take these things forward. Now, that whole report was done in 2014. So those young people are now going into the workplace. They are now 19 as a minimum. So they're perhaps in part-time jobs, they're at university, in full-time jobs, all of those kind of things. So let's have a look at cyberbullying and what it looks like in the workplace. So first of all, what is it? Well, it's any form of bullying, harassment, or victimisation online. That definition comes from ACAS, which is the widely used organisation that provides guidance for businesses. And so that can come through any kind of phone, tablets, computers, anything like that, any sort of social media, gaming apps, online forums, all sorts of different routes it can actually come through. So to understand what cyberbullying is, we obviously need to understand what bullying is. Now, bullying in itself doesn't have a legal definition, but the most commonly used one is the one that's provided by ACAS again. Offensive, intimidating, malicious or insulting behaviour, and abuse or misuse of power. And it will be means that undermine, humiliate, denigrate or injure the recipient. It's a really tough area. ACAS in themselves, when they did another research paper in 2015, suggested that actually maybe it should be a slightly broader definition about ill treatment, interpersonal conflict, or unacceptable and unwanted behaviours. You actually look on the ACAS website now, you'll find that that definition is shifting again, and they're trying to kind of just really change that to make it a little bit easier to understand, I think. But the unwanted behaviours is really important when you look at harassment. And harassment is basically bullying that relates to protected characteristics. And again, we come back to this unwanted conduct. And in fact, there are 9 protected characteristics. And actually, these are some of the key areas where cyberbullying tends to be aimed at as well online. So it's something to be very aware of. What does it look like in the workplace itself? Now, we said it's these unwanted behaviours. Let's actually put it down to some behaviours. So, first of all, sharing inappropriate content, including images. there was an example where a man in an office actually had a crush on one of his female colleagues, and she turned him down. Apart from anything else, inter-work relationships were frowned upon in the organisation, but he didn't take kindly to being rejected. And so he went onto her social media account and took a photo of her. He actually took her head and superimposed it onto another body, so they were inappropriate images. That's something that's called deep faking, and essentially circulated them around the office. Now, that lady actually ended up losing her career as a result, and actually she'd done nothing wrong. So it's really important that you understand that, you know, things could be manipulated much more online. Public humiliation, rumours, gossip on social media. Again, organisations are using things like WhatsApp groups much more widely now. And a recent example was in the hospitality industry, there were a group of people using a WhatsApp group in order to just check which shifts they were on, what rota they were on. And then it became a place where they started using it for gossip and just making comments about each other in an inappropriate way. And so the organisation said, well, actually, we're going to shut this down. That's not appropriate, which was great. But all they did was they reformed the group without the manager in there, so they could continue doing it. And we'll talk about kind of why that happens. Excessive emails at all hours. Again, one of the things here is to think about the expectation. If you're just emailing because you suddenly remembered something and it has just popped into your head, you think, I'll just send a quick email, they can open it in the morning, great. If it is something where actually you are expecting a response at any time outside of working hours, then that is when it becomes a bullying behaviour. And actually in France, they had some reforms to their labour law, and they basically said that there is a right to disconnect, and now employers actually have to agree with their employees that they won't contact them outside of working hours. And bearing in mind, in France, the working week is 35 hours. So copying people who don't need the information into emails, particularly if you're criticising somebody else, or more to the point, leaving you out of online communications in order to isolate you and place you at a disadvantage. I don't know if anybody saw the programme that was called Sticks and Stones that was on just before Christmas, but essentially that programme talked about somebody who wasn't told that the entire way of connecting the technology when he went in to do a sales pitch had changed, and therefore he made a complete mess of the sales pitch. So that there are all sorts of different ways that can be used. Threats of physical violence, whether you've actually received those at work, you've perhaps seen them in society. MPs were certainly threatened a great deal. That got a lot of publicity. Posing as a target online and publishing defamatory posts. How safe is your information? One of the other things we'll talk about shortly is actually the cyber security and looking after yourself. Because actually cyberbullying and cybercrime are very closely linked, and so cybersecurity is a key element of tackling cyberbullying at work. And really just, it can go further. You know, we're talking about cyberbullying behaviours there, but it can go further, and this is where we're starting to get into much more serious behaviour. So locating personal information about a victim. In your workplace, we have GDPR, but how sure are you that your employees are not looking at the data of other employees? Are they looking at your customers, your suppliers? How can they find information, and are you keeping that safe? So they can use that to communicate with the victim. They can use it to hack into the victim's laptop and actually use the webcam to look at them. So it's a really good idea that if you're not actually broadcasting on your webcam, that you have a little slider across it and just keep it closed off. They can obviously use it for identity theft and damaging the reputation of the victim, whether it's their credit rating or whether it's their reputation personally or professionally. as well as spamming, or even going as far as tricking other internet users into harassing or threatening a victim. So really whipping up that hate behaviour. So what makes it different? Well, in order to talk about this, I've called on some research that was done by Dr. Sam Farnley, Professor Ian Coyne and Pramila de Cruz, which is called Cyberbullying at Work, Understanding the Influence of Technology. And these are the areas that they really identified. So when people are actually cyberbullying, it's almost as if they have this sense of power from behind the security of their screens. And one of the most powerful things is it's indirect when it's online, it's not face to face. You can't challenge it in the moment in the same way as you potentially could if it was in the office, for example. The perpetrators, the bully, can remain anonymous. They can set up an account with a fake name and they can just use that. They can be in separate physical locations. They don't have to be anywhere near you in the office. They don't have to do anything like that. So. And the information that they publish can remain accessible and visible for long periods of time. And this actually reinforces a trauma as well, because what people have a tendency to do is to go back and reread the comments that have been written about them. And every time they do that, they're re-experiencing the trauma at that time. It can be experienced anywhere, anytime, from any device. So you can't leave the office and get away from it. You're taking it home with you. You've still got it with you. It's invading into your home. And it has the potential to be viewed by a much larger audience. So whereas you might have a few witnesses to bullying within the office, you essentially, this just goes out into the wide world and a lot of people can see it. What that also means is there can be an awful lot of bystander roles. So there are the people who just see it online. There are people who are with the perpetrator, the bully, when it's sent. And there are people who are with the target when it's actually received. Now, a bystander must speak up. They must say something. They must help the victim report it. They must speak up, but not online ideally, because then you're just actually encouraging the behaviour. But if you permit it, if you do nothing and you stay silent, if you permit it, you promote it. And one of the biggest problems is that this can occur without the target being aware. And just to give you an example of that, there was a case, it's actually in Northern Ireland, this case in March 2012, where one of the employees made an obscene comment about one of the other female employees about her promiscuity. And although it was made outside of work on his private account, he mentioned the name of the organisation. And actually, it doesn't even need to be mentioned. It could be implied. If you even say on your account that you work there, then it can be linked to the workplace. But essentially, she was blocked. She hadn't seen it herself, but somebody made her aware. So she asked him to remove it. And in response, he actually put up another obscene comment. And so, you know, that was actually workplace behaviour, and he was dismissed for gross misconduct. So really, really serious behaviour. But what can businesses do to tackle workplace cyberbullying? Well, there's an awful lot that they're perhaps already doing or maybe doing. Recruitment procedures, a lot of people use social media accounts to check when they're recruiting people, to look at their accounts. You need to make sure that you are transparent about the fact that you are going to do that. I think people tend to assume it now, but be transparent about it. You might have an anti-bullying or dignity at work policy. Does it include cyberbullying? Has it been referred to in there? Is it referred to in the code of conduct? Do you talk about online behaviour as well as face-to-face behaviour? Is it included in your cybersecurity policy? Do you even have one? So in your social media policies, does it link back to GDPR? And then finally, my favourite one, obviously, you can have all the policies in the world, but if you don't train people, if you don't get them to understand and be aware of what these actually mean and the impact of these behaviours, then they won't do any good whatsoever. When I actually created some e-learning, I actually linked mine with a cybersecurity company called Bob's Business, so that actually when people go in and do the bullying awareness, then actually they can map that all in with their cybersecurity training as well, their social media etiquette as well as their email etiquette. It's all on there. So that was, for me, was really important to link those two together. So what if you experience cyberbullying? What do you do? First of all, do not feed the trolls. Do not respond in any way whatsoever. All you are doing is giving them something else. No matter how measured and calm your response, you're giving them something else to work with. You need to block them, you need to report them to your organisation and to the social media platform, but also, if necessary, if it's really serious, make sure you report it to the police. And just check what personal information you've been sharing as well, because actually your own personal cybersecurity is just as important as the business that you work for. So it's really important that you're careful about what you share about yourself. And save evidence of the online bullying and harassment, and if necessary do a screenshot in case it's taken down so you've got evidence that it was there in the first place. But most of all, look after yourself, look after your mental health and your well-being, and get support if you need to. If you're at all anxious as a result of this experience, get support. That's so important. In terms of reporting it, I just mentioned there about the fact that you can report this to the police if it is very serious. There's a huge amount of legislation that sits around bullying, from health and safety to employment law. You've got the Equality Act for harassment. When you bring cyberbullying in, and the Protection from Harassment Act was set up to help people who are being stalked online. You've got malicious communications, computer misuse, and actually the very serious crime that is actually called hate crime. There's quite a lot of legislation around that already. And actually check with your local police as well, because on the North Yorkshire Police website, for example, they've got a page which is all about bullying and cyberbullying, and you can actually go on there and check what sort of behaviour you should be reporting, or get in touch with somebody to get some more support. And, you know, this is a much bigger issue than just the workplace. This is becoming a societal issue. And so there's a lot more work going on about legislation. You know, it's recognised that some of the legislation is outdated, there's a lack of meaningful consequences, and that there's a huge number of hate crimes that actually go unreported as well. So actually there is new legislation coming through. There's a UK Council for Internet Safety, the Online Harms White Paper, that the consultation response was published earlier this year, and that's going through Parliament. There are 2 new hate crime bills, misogyny and I'm going to say misandry. I may have pronounced that wrong. So it's prejudice against women, prejudice against men. There's also ISO standards for the workplace being developed around psychological safety. So there's all sorts going on. There are companies as well who are using technology. So Moonshot actually look at violent extremism by really making sure that they actually put information in front of the extremist propaganda. So they're counter messaging and they're directing people to sources of help. Hate Lab uses artificial intelligence to detect online hate speech, and basically again it's about redirecting those people to get support. That's the aim behind these. So there's an awful lot going on, but ultimately it's individual responsibility plays a huge part. We all have to be careful about what we're putting online, what we're saying, how we're using our words, how we're using images, particularly of other people, and just making sure that we are really, really careful and stand up for others as well. So it's time for change. It's time for conduct change. Thank you.
Brilliant, Nicki. That was brilliant. I like that. The key thing that I really took from that, I like the quote: "If you stay silent, you permit it, you promote it. Say something and support the victim." That's kind of the key message that came out for me. And you often see that you see people online who will often just see a negative comment and it's not my problem, it's not me. So I think it's important that people do try and help where they can.
It's so important to stand up and basically help support people who are going through this. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that, Nicki. Questions. If you've got questions to chat, please use the Q&A button at the bottom and populate there. We'll spend the next 5 minutes or so just going in. Please ask your questions in the Q&A section. Nicki can see that, I can see that, and then we can just have a bit of a discussion, hopefully, around some of those points. Perhaps you've experienced cyberbullying, perhaps you've been the cyberbully. Any questions, you know, maybe perhaps you didn't even realise you were a cyberbully, I don't know. Could be all sorts of questions coming. I've got loads written down here. I suppose while you guys are doing that, maybe I'll fire a couple off. I suppose, Nicki, have you ever personally experienced cyberbullying, if you don't mind sharing, if you have one?
I haven't. I experienced bullying in the workplace, but I haven't experienced. Do you know, actually, it's quite interesting because obviously some of that was through email. So yes, some of it was cyberbullying related, and I guess I don't think about that as a separate issue within that whole experience, but actually it contributed to it. So yeah, there was that element of it as well. But in terms of kind of out on social media, no, I fortunately haven't. I'm pleased to say. Yeah.
I think you probably saw my comment there. Keyboard warriors, warriors, trolls are everywhere online, and that's something we see all the time with say people leaving negative reviews that are unjust, or you know, they'll put a social post up there and they'll just troll it for the sake of it. And it's
yeah, and I spoke to somebody recently who put a post out on LinkedIn, and essentially they came back and they had so many negative comments that they actually deleted the post, rightfully so, because they were inappropriate comments, not necessarily just negative. And so once they took that down, they actually found that people started sending them direct messages. And, you know, one person who was supposed to be a professional actually told them to go forth and die.
No.
Now that's extreme. Then it's, you know, it really isn't good at all. Unfortunately, she was okay, but I just reached out to her to say, do you need any support in these circumstances? So she handled it really well because she didn't retaliate. She didn't feed the trolls. So.
It doesn't feel, I know Ray and Ian have put their hand up to chat, but obviously we don't have the chat facility on this webinar. So Ian and Ray, please could you pop your questions in the actual chat if the Q&A thing's not working for you? That'd be really useful. I can see that the hands are up, but it's not like with the webinar. So please just populate questions in the chat. Select all panelists and attendees, and then we can see it. Or if it's a private question, just send it straight to Nicki or myself. You can change toggle between the delegates in the bottom right hand corner. If you've got any questions, there must be some questions, surely. Come on. Such a big topic.
Obviously, just bowled them over.
Yeah, you killed them off. I suppose the question
sorry,
for me...
That's cyberbullying in the extreme, isn't it? I'm really sorry.
Yeah, oh, well, best report me. I do apologise. Yeah. I wrote another question now. Well, the guys are thinking about their questions. You mentioned social media policies, cyberbullying policies. Is that something you recommend for all businesses or certain size, or what's your thoughts and opinions around that?
I think it's really important to have that kind of information from a small business upwards, because actually as soon as you start working with another person, you need to have that agreement in place. And so if you're going to be working to a certain standard within the organisation, then absolutely you should be having those in place. That would be my feeling around it, definitely. So
I agree with that. So yeah, excellent. So questions are, you've got 4. Can you see those, Nicki? You've got 4.
I can, yes. So from Charlotte, do you think the cyberbullies know they are leaving such a good data trail? I'd be surprised if they didn't. However, I just don't think, I think people who really get riled up and start to put very negative comments onto social media don't even think about what they're doing and the trail that they're leaving. They don't even believe that they're doing anything wrong. And I think that's one of the real issues, that they don't understand that their behaviour is completely inappropriate and unacceptable. And unfortunately, it feels like that's becoming the norm in society as well. And I think that's something that we really need to shout about and say, actually, it's not acceptable. If you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, then why are you putting it online? But I really don't think they care about leaving a trail. I think they want to be noticed. They want other people to join in with them on the bandwagon. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, attention-seeking behaviour, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah.
So I suppose we've got, can you see the Q&A bit? We've got one from Ian. I think he's been dying to ask this question. So in the Q&A bit, we've got Ian who asks, what can we do to help get this message out and help Nicki? Not help Nicki, but...
Okay, so really, if you actually see any bullying whatsoever, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's children, whether it's online, any of it, then help those people, help them to report it, help them to find the information they need. I'll put some more useful links up onto our website soon, but Conduct Change is really campaigning to raise awareness about bullying. So if you have a story that you'd like to share, then you can get in touch with me and share that confidentially. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, then if you just go to our website, which is conductcoaching.com, then you can sign up to the newsletter on there. We have a crowdfunding page because we have a special course for helping people to move on from workplace bullying, and we really want to try and do that at absolute minimal cost or even no cost for people, because that's when they need support the most. That's when their emotional well-being is at its lowest. So really just keep up to date with us, keep liking and commenting on our posts, and if you've got any questions, put them on our posts and we'll make sure we get them answered as well.
Brilliant.
So
Great answer, thank you. I suppose that kind of links into the next one from Ray. LinkedIn is right for cyberbullying. How do we stop it?
I think it's really important, again, Ray, to report it whenever it happens, block people, make sure that you are keeping yourself safe and keeping yourself under control with lots of support. You get a really good support network. I think the other thing is, having spoken to somebody recently, I know that they have reported information to LinkedIn. They've reported people sending obscene images, and those accounts haven't been taken down. So again, we need to make sure that we're reporting more and more and more to LinkedIn, and I will follow up with that lady and actually write to LinkedIn on behalf of the organisation to raise this as an issue and ask them what they are going to do about it. So.
Thank you. What would you like to go on? Yeah, Julie, I suppose in the chat we will have access to the presentation so we can get and digest it later.
I believe the video is going to be available, isn't it, Chris?
Yes. So the video will, yeah, I think they're asking more. Can we have the slide, I think, what she was getting at. But yeah, the video will be made available as a term of a link, and you can access it and review it later and pass it on and share it, get the knowledge out there, and obviously spread the word. And obviously it's a question whether Nicki wants to share the slides. I suppose if you want to ask Nicki privately, you've got her email address there, so if you ask nicely, she may do. I don't know.
Yeah, just drop me an email. Thank you.
And then, yeah, go for it if you want. Do you want me to read it?
Do you want to go for it? Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got David back in the Q&A bit. Hi, Nicki. Do you think that some high-profile court cases may draw attention to this problem?
I think what's really interesting now is that there's already been high-profile court cases, but they tend to be when somebody has, it's a celebrity involved, perhaps, or when there is a suicide involved. And so it has to really go to the extreme levels, it seems, to really capture the attention of people. And that's quite worrying, really. So I guess there's part of me that says, yes, high profile court cases do help draw attention, but actually we'd really like to stop it before it gets that far, because that's just really worrying that people have to go that far down the process before actually some information comes back through. There was, celebrities are very good at coming forward now and saying that this is wrong and standing up against them. But there's also organisations that are really help pushing. So last Friday was Stop Cyberbullying Day, which was run by the Cybersmile Foundation, and they're doing a huge amount of work against about looking at bullying. You've got organisations that are setting up now to try and create safer online social media platforms such as Worldy. And so there's all sorts of different initiatives out there, but I think really by sharing the message, getting the information out there and starting the bigger conversation, then that's how we make change happen. Me Too has made people more aware and more likely to stand up against sexual harassment in the workplace. Black Lives Matter. It's making people think again now and actually revise how they're approaching, both personally and professionally, the way they work with Black people. All of these conversations start to help make change happen. And until we can have a huge conversation about bullying and cyberbullying in a really open way, and people accept that it is something they need to get hold of, then we won't be able to make that change happen. And that's what I would urge everybody to do.
You kind of half answered, I think, the next question which Ian asked. How do we stop fake accounts and what more can we do to lobby the powers that be? I think you started to answer that anyway, but...
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and have a look at the white paper, but obviously there's the online harms white paper and the consultation response that's just come out from that. So I'd have to have a look in there at anything about fake accounts. But actually, you know, one of the primary reasons for all of that coming up was actually to hold social media companies to account. And so it may be that actually there are bigger movements going on and that we need to add our voices to those movements. And I will check all that information. I'll try and do a post about that at some point soon on LinkedIn and other social media accounts.
Could I just add to that from a Facebook perspective, that I know Facebook have really got a lot stricter with creating new accounts and fake profiles. You've got to do things like two-factor authentication, verifying mobile phone numbers, email addresses, uploading ID if you're creating a business manager as well now. So you know, there's a lot more effort. It's not saying it's going to stop out fake accounts completely, but it'll make it a lot harder and a lot more work for people to create fake accounts. Well, that's certainly what Facebook have been doing. So
yeah, and I would say that all of the social media organisations are under a lot more pressure now to take a bit more responsibility for what is on there. And there is always the argument about freedom of speech versus what is appropriate. And actually, if it is inciting any kind of harm towards another person, then that's not freedom of speech. It's hate crime, it's cyberbullying. And that's where we need all to stand up and make sure that we speak up and report it.
Thank you. And I suppose, last but not least, the final question from Ray. Are trade unions on board and could they fund support or conduct?
I haven't had any response from the trade unions so far, although the FDA, which is the union that supports the people working in Parliament, did respond to my tweets over the last few days. So there's a big debate going on in Parliament at the moment about an independent panel and whether or not the outcome from that should be debated. So that's about workplace bullying and harassment in the wider sense. And it's starting to get us some traction with the comments that we're putting out there to support the employees there. So fingers crossed, Ray, that we will reach the attention of the unions and they will come on board as well to help create change in these areas.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think it's a much bigger pigure, isn't it, than the ones and the twos. And if more people are involved and helping each other, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. More voices to the bigger conversation, definitely.
I think that's it for the questions. Anything to close from you? Any closing statement or anything, Nicki? Anything you want to say, or just to close us out?
You know, a massive thank you to everybody for coming on board and listening today. And it is so important just to get the message out there and to help people. If somebody has been affected, if they know of anyone who has been affected, then we do have the Moving On programme, which really helps people just regain their confidence and their resilience after such an experience. And absolutely, we would love to help those people as well. So please just refer them to our website.
Brilliant.
That would be great.
I appreciate the work you're doing there to try and help people. So I know it's coming from a good place. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time. One last plug from me. We've got more webinars this week. The last one today is at 5 o'clock, where Louise Paddock's going to be keeping the theme of security, and she's talking about data and privacy online. So that'll be at 5 o'clock. I'll drop the link in the chat, so please feel free to have a look at that one today, plus the other webinars that are running until Friday. We've got a quiz on Friday at 4 till 5 o'clock, so join us for that. There you go, there's the link. Thank you very much, all the delegates, and thank you, Nicki.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.